All right, everybody. So welcome. We are going today talking about a masterclass on getting rid of, reducing, alleviating seasonal allergies. And it's relevant. It's very relevant. One, I don't make any distinctions between the body and the mind, and or I don't make non-useful distinctions between the body and the mind. And so this is mental health. It's really just health. But if you're having an allergy really is that your body is responding to something as if it's a threat, right? And no judgment to that. That's like, I've had allergies, seasonal allergies for most of my life. In fact, I was mostly I had a nickname as a kid that I didn't like. It was one of the nicknames that other kids would use to make fun of me, which was Boogie Nose, because I almost had a constant nasal drip. And that continued all throughout my early adulthood. Even when I was studying yoga and Ayurveda and all these things, and it was like, I literally lived, in my kind of non-typical history that a lot of people don't know about. I literally lived in a yogic retreat training ground in Thailand for 7 years. So I took it pretty seriously and pretty hardcore. And I carried around a box of tissues with me almost everywhere I went. It was almost a laughable joke for people that knew me. So it wasn't until I learned the things that I'm going to talk to you about today that I actually alleviated that. And so just big dose of empathy and compassion, not judgment here, about if you're struggling with this. I mean, I've struggled with it for a lot of my life, and I still have allergy symptoms every now and again, but they are dramatically better. I mean, to the point where I haven't taken a single, it's spring now and pollen's been blooming for a couple weeks now or whatever, and I haven't taken one dose of allergy medicine. That would have been unheard of in years past. And so the other person that I'll tell you about is my son Finn, who's has had a similar curve. So it's also, while I'm going to introduce things that are not necessarily super simple or super easy to learn, they're also, he implemented them as a from the time he was around 8 or 9, and now maintains various degrees of success. Because here's the thing: you got to continuously cultivate. I don't have a snake oil. I don't have a pill that I can just offer you that say it's going to be better forever. It's like life is an ongoing cultivation. It's an ongoing activation of certain things. And so Finn hasn't always wanted to do the work. He hasn't wanted always to use the tools. And so sometimes he stops using the tools and he's, Dad, can I have allergy medicine? And it's like, part of me is like, yeah, of course, it's not a big deal. These are relatively harmless medications. You can have an allergy medicine, but at the same time, we have a deal. Like if he realizes that he's asking me for allergy medicine, part of our deal is that he also realizes that I'm going to be expecting that he picks up his empowerment practices again, so that he gets to a point where he doesn't need the allergy medicine. And if he's only just using the allergy medicine as a crutch, I don't believe in my ethics of life, which don't need to be yours, by the way. But I don't believe in my ethics of life that is a ethical use of medication. If there are things that he can do to get at the root, it's also not just healthy, because just suppressing symptoms ultimately leads to more complicated problems down the line. So just suppressing symptoms, which the medicine does, that's a great, and wonderful. Again, like have a headache and take a Tylenol or an ibuprofen or whatever. But if you have a lifestyle behavior that or an example of, if you have indigestion and you take antacids every day, but then you want to keep eating hot dogs. Well, like I just think that that's irresponsible, and forget the ethics of it. Forget just the fact is that like 20 years later, you're going to have a heart attack, and like the initial early minor symptoms that weren't that big a deal were actually wisdoms telling you to do something, to change something about your life. And just by taking a medicine that gets rid of that symptom, um, then if you lose the wisdom that the symptom was trying to encourage you to follow, then you are setting yourself up for much bigger problems down the line. And people don't like just have like diseases or heart attacks or whatever. Those things don't develop overnight. And I'm not trying to fear monger here about allergies. Like, I'm just kind of painting a reason why we approach it this way is like, I want to, one, always have the power be in my body and my mind and my emotions and my spirit and my tools. And I want to be independent as much as possible from whatever it is, whether it's a medicine or anything like that. Two, I do want to be, I want to take advantage of, I've taken advantage of medicine many times in my life. And I even have had a life-saving surgery. And, so I'm not saying like we need to go to this wacko holistic perspective where we never take advantage of pharmaceuticals or surgical procedures or, whatever. But to take the information from the symptom, perhaps use a medication to help me in the short term, but then get myself some space and some distance so that I can do the things that I can do to empower myself to no longer need the medication. And I think that's also true, by the way, for anxiety medications or depression medications, et cetera. But to think, oh, you're just going to just take this anxiety or this depression medication for the rest of your life, or even this is you're giving away your personal power and your personal responsibility to solve that problem more intrinsically. And it's not just about it, and it's more important than just like some standard of like, I don't want to take medicine. That's not really the deal. It's like, take medicine. Some people do take medicine for the rest of their lives and need to, and that's a wonderful thing if that's helpful for you. The point is that doing the work to solve the problem intrinsically, if you can, is going to have so many other dividends and gains, and it's going to prevent so many other unknown challenges that's our approach. So Finn sometimes has to remember, and he's a kid, so it's like, no big deal. Of course, he's like, it doesn't always want to do the breathing exercises that enable him to not have the allergies. And so, Dad, can I have a whatever we use to help him with that? Sure, no problem. But are you going to get back using the tools? Yeah, I'm going to get back using the tools. Okay. And so this happened to Finn just the other day. He took medicine for one day, and then he got back using the tools just for a couple of days, and now he's not taking the medicine again. He had an acute situation. Oh yeah, shoot, I guess I got to do those breathing exercises again. Right. So that's really cool. Okay. So, and by the way, just to also think that another story that people will tell themselves is, oh, but they don't really understand. Like, I have allergies so much worse. I have, Finn had allergies to the point of asthma, and we had to take him to the hospital on numerous occasions when he was a young child for breathing treatments, because he was getting like almost anaphylactic about allergic responses to the environment and to getting sick and things like that. So it wasn't a minor situation. And so it's part of the reason why I actually researched it, because this is something that I choose to do as a father and as a person that helps other people with these things. I'm like, okay, well, what's the deal? Okay, I'm going to look, what are the alternative strategies here? And I'm going to vet. I'm going to say, okay, well, that's snake oil, that's BS, that's it, but this has got evidence behind it. This has got research behind it. This is a good thing. And then I'm going to dial in on it. I'm going to practice it myself, which is what I did. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely good enough for me to share with my children. I shared it with Finn. I shared it with Rudy, because there also are some optimal performance benefits to doing this. And he just wanted to do it because wants to improve his performance as an athlete. And so we started doing this breath work together as a family, and Finn had amazing results. He had a sunken in chest that doctors told us he would have forever. It was normal. It was a normal abnormality, but that it would never go away. He had this really medical emergency allergy situation that would just be something that we would have to cope with. He had, he had asthma when every time he got sick, he had these asthmatic reactions that, again, many middle of the night visits to the emergency room, which was very stressful for us as parents, and all that resolved. So it wasn't like a minor thing, and my allergies weren't necessarily a minor thing. That being said, you know what is best for you. You know what is best for your family. Of course, people have worse allergies, and of course, people, so like, this is not medical advice, and it's not judgmental in any way. That being said, if you want to learn these tools, they are skills. They are skills, and like any other skill, they get better the more you use them, the more you practice them. And if you just be like, oh, well, I tried it for 3 days and it didn't work, well, maybe you just weren't that good at that skill yet. This is something that I really like that Dr. Joe Dispenza says, and some people might think he's a wooey, but if you really run the experiment, the people that often will point at things like that and say, oh, that's a bunch of BS, they haven't run the experiment. They're not actually scientists. If you're a scientist, you have to repeat. There's a hypothesis and there's an experiment, and then there's results, and then there's modification of the hypothesis. But if you don't run the experiment, you actually can't critique the results. You haven't run it. And in that case of Dr. Joe work, the experiment is pretty extensive. So a lot of people don't want to run it, and that's fine. They don't want to do the work, of like, I did the meditations every day for a year type of a thing, because that's what that's what the hypothesis is. Not lying. The hypothesis isn't saying you're just going to like do a meditation and all of a sudden you're going to like have your health problem resolved. No, it's saying you're going to completely change your personality. You're going to completely break the habit of being yourself. You're going to be immersed in the neurochemicals of these elevated emotions for a long period of time, even though you still have the problem or the condition. And you're going to basically do this incredible emotional alchemy. And you're going to go into these deep, deep, deep brainwave states. And you're going to train your brain to be able to get into deep, deep brainwave states to make these changes at a very deep structural level within your system. And you're going to master that skill. And then you're going to have these results. And if you don't do the work or the practice to master that process, your critique of, oh, that doesn't work, or that's a bunch of bullshit, your critique is invalid. So, and again, you don't need to do that whole process, but then just shut up because you don't actually know. All right, so I'll get off my high horse about that. If you want to get good at this, you can get good at this. And it's not nearly as hard as that Dr. Joe process that I was talking about, thankfully. So the things that have been a difference that have made a difference for me in terms of allergies, some of the simpler things are changes in diet, like basically anything that will lower inflammation, but also the things that you're learning in this community, anything that you can do to move out of survival mode and into thriving mode. Because if you think about it, at the base of it, the allergy is responding to something that's not threatening as if it's threatening. So it is actually a survival mode response. So the allergy is going, oh, that pollen is I need to fight that pollen. When really we don't. It's an error. It's a kind of a glitch. And we want to change the glitch at the deepest level possible. Excuse me. Allergies. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. I was sick yesterday. Okay. So anything that you can do for move from survival mode to thriving mode, anything that you already know about turning off the alarm switch and turning on the thriving mode, and spending more and more and more time with your nervous system immersed deeply in the thriving mode is actually going to help your allergies. And the placebo effect, guys, is really real. It's not, people say, oh, it's just imagine. No, it's not just your imagination. It's real. So if you add intention to your work of changing your nervous system from default mode survival to default mode thriving, and you set your mind to that helping you with allergies, that will contribute to that benefit. That specificity catalyzes process, in having specific intention to doing all of the work that you're learning here in the Gem Gym, all of the work that you're learning at All Together Academy, all of the work that you're doing to get into deep nervous system states of relaxation, healing, thriving, well-being, etc., can be specified to help you with allergies. Okay. And underlying a lot of the physiology threat is inflammation. And you hear, so anything that you can do to reduce inflammation that you already know about reducing inflammation, nutrition, minimizing carbs, cutting out sugar, whatever, that those are things that I tend to prefer in how I live my lifestyle. And they make a big difference for me in terms of allergies. They make a big difference for me in terms of, it's almost like, I feel like when I have an excess amount of inflammation, that like the allergies just put me over the top. Or when I have an excess amount of mucus that is diet related, like from dairy or cheese or things like that. But I find that I can handle the dairy or cheese when I am very minimal on the carbs and sugar. And but the dairy and cheese really, really makes a big difference when I'm kind of eating what is considered a regular American diet. And I mean a healthy, regular American diet with bread and grains and all that stuff. The dairy and cheese then really, really makes things worse in terms of my allergies. I happen to think that dairy and cheese, from my perspective, are good for me and my body. So I prefer to cut out the carbs and the sugar and keep in the dairy and the cheese. All right, I'm looking at notes over here. Okay, so I'm going to talk about another one that is great for me for reducing inflammation and improving my overall tone of my immune system is cold. I've recently had the opportunity to be doing cold plunging in a gym where I'm really immersing in 40, 50 degree water. That's also been a game changer in me not having allergy outbreaks this spring. I realize that's not available to everybody, but maybe you have a bathtub at home or a cold shower. And what is a lot of people resist this, but again, it's like, okay, well, choose your discomfort. Do you prefer the discomfort of the allergies, or do you prefer the discomfort of the cold and the restrictions in your diet, etc.? That's up to you. That's up to you. I'm really, really sincerely not judging as much as I'm providing options and information. And the information is what it is. The science is what it is, and the effects are what they are. And so I prefer a 1 to 2 minutes of for the benefits that has to my immune system. That short and intense discomfort is way preferable to me than the elongated discomfort of like itching eyes and sneezing and runny nose almost constantly. So cold inoculation is good. How cold does it need to be is a question that is regularly asked. And how cold, the answer to that question is not a temperature. It needs to be cold enough to make you go to take your breath away, because it's actually producing an adrenaline response. That's what the benefit is. It's an inoculation. It's like getting a vaccine. You get a small dose so that your body can build tolerance to that thing. And so the cold is purposefully giving you a dose of distress, so that you build tolerance to the stress. And so how cold is cold enough is that it needs to take your breath away, but too cold is you want it to be, you want to be able to get your breath managed within about 30 seconds. And then hang in there. And then after that, after you get your breath managed, it actually starts to feel pretty good. and then you can hang in there for 1 to 2 minutes. Really, the research set suggests that about 11 minutes a week of that, kind of a random number, but obviously they're taking some averages, but about 11 minutes a week, you can do the math on how many minutes you need per day, is kind of statistically proven to be really effective for lots of different things: mental, emotional, physical benefits. We're not going to go into all the things about cold today, but takes your breath away. You can regulate your breath within 30 seconds. If you're longer than that, if you're like still really freaking out after 45 seconds, like it was too cold for you, that's okay. Make it a little warmer. If it's like you get in and you're like, oh, yeah, it's cold, but like, well, that's not cold enough. It needs to go. That's right. Okay. Another types of breathing exercises that you can do that are not like the main thing that I'm talking about, but these are supplementary, is humming and or bzzz, but really closing your mouth. And you can add to this if you really want to amp it up yogically. You close your eyes, you close your ears, and you even close your nose. Sorry, don't do the close your nose part. Forget it. Do not press on your eyes when you do that. You're just blocking them lightly. Okay, you're like, well, that's really weird, hippie. Are you oming? Like, well, get over it. So the scientific explanation on the sound is that it produces nitrous oxide, and that is really good for your nasal passages and really good for your heart, lots of things. So you don't need to do the eye and ear part. That's just makes it a little bit more meditative. You can just do the just hum. You can hum your favorite song, whatever. That can be really useful. And then the more specific breathing stuff, that is the game-changing stuff, that has really been the difference, that has made a difference for me, is the stuff from the book, the Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeown. You can please do read that book. Please, that's a rabbit hole worth going down, because here's the thing, and how it's totally related to everything, is that most people, he makes the kind of a hypothesis that we're living in a over-breathing, in a weird way, an over-breathing epidemic, that people are getting too much oxygen and not enough carbon dioxide. And what this means, what the breakdown of this is that most people have more than enough oxygen in their blood, but their brain is not able to use the oxygen in their blood, because it is carbon dioxide that enables the oxygen to be used well. And we need to have an appropriate balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide in order to really be running well. And we have kind of like an outdated medical model that says O2 is good and CO2 is bad, or O2 is the food and CO2 is the waste. And it's really that they actually need to be working together. They're both absolutely essential. And most people have too much, or it's not even that they have too much oxygen, is that they don't have enough tolerance to carbon dioxide that enables them to make use of the appropriate amount of oxygen that they're already getting. And then what happens is that people will gasp for more oxygen, and because they haven't built up the CO2, that actually their brain, there's a receptor in their brain going, oh, there's the balance is already off. I got too much oxygen, and it restricts their vessels even more, and it makes the situation counterproductive worse. This eventually can lead to like a panic attack or an anaphylactic reaction or asthma, and so the solution is not more oxygen. The solution is more carbon dioxide. This is actually the old school wisdom why people, when they had panic attacks and we had them around, people would say, breathe into a paper bag what you're doing is recycling, and you're actually, because you're breathing back in your carbon dioxide, you're raising your carbon dioxide so that your system can make use of the oxygen and you can calm down. So, but what we want to do is over time, we want to build our carbon dioxide capacity stores and capacity. And so Patrick McKeown makes the proposition in his book that there's something called the BOLT score, the blood oxygen level test, where you can figure out what your BOLT score is. That's quite easy. I will put a link to that, but you can look it up. Patrick McKeown, Oxygen Advantage, BOLT score, and do a test. It takes a minute. It's easy. And you find out where you're at. And then when you find out where you're at, he's got prescriptions in his book that are like, this is what you do. If your BOLT score is between this and this number, do this. If it's between this and this number, do this. And so some of what I'm talking about today is coming from a question from one of our Gem members today. And I happen to know what her BOLT score is. So the advice that I'm going to give is particular to that BOLT score. And this isn't about being like restrictive or exclusive. This is, you wouldn't expect to be able to learn trigonometry if you're just learning your times tables, right? So she's at a certain place because we've already been doing this work together where her BOLT score is at a certain place. And so this what I'm going to talk about now is relevant to her. And so when her BOLT score is in the mid-20s, and that's what is considered healthy and for an average adult. Less than that is considered dysfunctional. No judgment. It's considered disordered or impaired in some way. And although it's common, and that's where my BOLT score started, for sure, especially with my lung and diaphragm issues that I had for a couple decades, my BOLT score was quite low. But even with my diaphragm and lung stuff, I got my BOLT score. The highest I could ever get my BOLT score was to the mid-20s, to the healthy range. And I couldn't get up towards the 40 ranges that I'm now starting to get towards now that I've had the surgery. But I was able to keep my functioning pretty good through doing these practices and these exercises, even with half of a lung and paralyzed diaphragm with a hole in it. So the stuff works. So one of the ways that we are, so basically if your BOLT score is lower than mid-20s, this exercise is going to be probably a little bit too intense for you, and you should build up to it. And if you want to ask me specifically, and we want to do that in the Gem, just let me know what your BOLT score is, and we can talk about you specifically. But here we are talking about someone who's got a BOLT score in the mid-20s, who's got doctor clearance, who is not taking this as medical advice, who's giving me a disclaimer because this recording might be out to other people. You are responsible for your own physical and mental health. This is not medical advice. These are suggestions. These are the ways that I live, and you can take from it what you want, okay? And leave what doesn't work for you. So essentially, we want to build up the tolerance for CO2, which is building up our air hunger. And we do that by allowing our breath to go out and suspending is a better word than holding. So sorry, I said holding habitually. Suspending, leaving our breath out. And as your BOLT score is a little bit higher, we can do this in a little bit more. We can go for what Patrick McKeown calls moderate air hunger. And we can wait until we need to take a breath in a little bit longer. And the best exercise for this, and the one that my son took to a high level to help him with his allergies and asthma and his chest popping out and the whole 9 yards, is walking. When you're walking, you just take a natural breath in, you let it go out, and then you pinch your nose. When your breath is out, you pinch your nose, and then you keep walking, and you count how many steps. And you wait until there's a moderate hunger for air. You can push this a little bit if your bolt score is high enough. You can push this a little bit. And then you breathe in when you have that moderate air hunger. And these are the signs that know that if it takes you more than 2 or 3 breaths to recover, you held for too long. Okay, so you don't want to totally overwhelm this system. We want to stretch it. We want to build the muscle. We don't want to tear the muscle. We want to stretch it, and we want to help it grow in a sustainable way. Not even like you would a muscle at the gym where you're going to feel really sore the next day. Like, that's too much. Okay, because this is getting deep into our nervous system, and so you might get dizzy or whatever. So you are much better off finding where your easy level is first. And so I'll go, I can do that. I can take 15 steps or whatever. Okay. And that was easy. It was no challenge. And then you want to build up to what's your challenge and just really be 1 or 2 steps ahead of your challenge. You start the first, and you can do about 10 rounds of this. And it might take you about 10 to 15 minutes to do 10 rounds of this with about 30 seconds in between each round until you're waiting until your breath is completely regulated again. So again, you're walking, pinch the nose. I find even if you think that that's awkward or weird to do in public, I'm going to give you a gentle, like, you might be overly concerned with what other people think about you. And it's okay. It's okay, but it does not work as well from my experience. If you don't pinch your nose, oxygen still gets in and it completely distorts the process. So I could, as you can tell, because it took me almost no time to recover. I could just go into talking right away. I could have kept going, but I was like, oh, wait, we're in a video. It's also very blissful when you get good at that to hang out in that suspension. Ooh, it feels really nice. It feels really nice. It has all sorts of positive healing benefits, etc. But the point is that you walk and you count how many steps, and then you just try to build your steps day by day. You add 1 or 2 steps from the day before, or maybe over the period of one session. Maybe you start with 15 steps, but then by the end of that session, you're going to get to like 18 or 19 or 20 steps, and that's okay. And then maybe the next day you start at 16. Understand the principle here, not necessarily the specific numbers that I'm using. But what will happen, something that my sons and I all notice, is that when your first 1 or 2 or 3 reps, if you start at like the higher level at like the 20, and it's a struggle for you, then you won't progress. Then the next one will be like 12, and it's harder to recover. It's much more effective to start easier and build it. Start easier and build it. And believe it or not, in the book, Patrick McCann, and it was hard for me to believe, but then I watched my son do it. He said people get up to like 80, 90, 100 steps with their breath suspended out. And it is up in those higher numbers. I think Finn got to 75 or 80. And when he was at those numbers, that's when he had the major like recorrection of his chest. He never had another asthmatic reaction when he got sick. His seasonal allergies were mostly gone, etc. And so, okay, so that's the long-term practice, and you're doing that literally every day. So these are the other suggested things. There's also, there's more, and the Patrick McCown book is amazing. He also has an app. I have no affiliation with Patrick McCown whatsoever. I don't benefit from sharing this with you at all, except for I benefit from you thriving, and I love to know that you're thriving. And so there's a recipe for, whatever your bolt score is. And so the other things are always breathing through your nose, always breathing through your nose. Game-changing stuff. Always breathing through your nose as much as you can, including when you are sleeping, which means taping your mouth shut. I wish I have the tape right now. And this, I don't have the ability to pause the recording. If I stop it, it'll stop completely. So, but you can look up mouth tape for snoring, and it doesn't matter whether you snore or don't snore. It's a great idea to tape your mouth shut at night. Finn also does not like to tape his mouth shut. And of course, I'm not going to force him, like that would be unethical. But there's a correlation. And I was like, dude, would you rather the discomfort of the mouth tape or the discomfort of your allergies? So he started taping his mouth again by his own choice. He's 12 years old, and he is not using allergy medicine and not having, and there's a lot of pollen going on right now. I mean, like the car, when you go outside, is every morning is covered in green pollen, and there's a lot of pollen right now. And Finn is not sneezing or anything. Richie eyes, and that's really cool for him. So there's the recipe to breathe light, to breathe what he says, breathe light to breathe right. So I can't go into all of the Patrick McCown thing, but just know that there are good resources and tools out there. Now, for for acute situations when you are having an allergy attack, it's the same thing, but we add this is the nostril clearing exercise. So even if you're stuffed up because you have a cold or whatever, this will work, and it works the more you get good at it. And you just let your breath out, pinch your nose, and then so you're stretching this in here, and you're bringing your ear. So you want to kind of keep, so your chin is back so that your neck is long, and you want to keep that long neck, and you're just opening up here and you're thinking about bringing your ear to the ceiling and other ear to the ceiling with your breath suspended out until you get a air hunger. And you can do that a bunch of times in a row, and your nostrils will open up. A really cool story is we were driving Finn and one of his friends to soccer practice last year. And it was wild because our windows were open. It was one of those beautiful days. We have windows down. We have music going, right? And literally we went under a tree. And there was just a coincidental moment where there was a big gust of wind, and literally pollen just came into the car such that you could swipe it off with your finger. And it was in an instant. And Finn and the kid in the back seat both started sneezing instantly, like achoo, achoo, like that type of thing, like just sneezing, one sneeze after another, after another, after another. And I looked back to Finn and I just said, and I kind of notioned to them, his friend was like still like, and Finn was, and then I just saw Finn just started going. And Finn cleared it up within about a minute. His eyes were bloodshot. They went to completely clear. He stopped sneezing. He had no runny nose. The poor kid next to him sneezed for the entire 15 minutes to the soccer practice. Didn't stop once the whole time. Finn nipped it right in the bud. And that was really cool. And also very, very empowering. Very, very empowering. Okay. And the implications, by the way, that I haven't talked about are with this breathing epidemic that I'm talking about and us not having the right CO2 O2 balance. Well, guess what? It sends a message to the brain that something's wrong, because you're not getting enough oxygen to the brain, but it's not because you need more oxygen. It's because you need more CO2. So this is one of the main underlying factors for most people with anxiety. And they think, oh, I'm anxious because of I have a test coming up, or I don't like public speaking, or I don't like big spaces or whatever. It's like, no, you just need to raise your BOLT score. You just need to have more CO2 so that your brain's getting enough oxygen so that it's not freaking out 24/7. There are very simple, practical things that we can do to heal and thrive. And this is one of them. This is a no-brainer. Okay. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about, I know I'm on a little bit of a roll today. The last thing I'm going to talk about that is a bit more of like the esoterics, and maybe this has more to do with my experience with a couple decades of meditation and spiritual work, but here it is. I wrote some notes down the other day because I was inspired. And it says, the most subtle and perhaps this is the fruition of longstanding meditation practice, but I would like you to be open to the possibility and take what you can from this. That again, when we have allergies, we are oftentimes in an obvious or subtle defensive stance with and against our environment. And taking a chance to open up and really breathe fully and embrace the beauty and our sensorial interaction with the community and the environment around us, our immediate environment, I find that I can get almost through a protective barrier that is kind of a counterfeit and counterproductive state of like, so for example, when that pollen comes in and I treat it like it's something to be, that it's a threat, that's what makes it a threat. And that's what actually is the allergy. And if I find that I can catch that and choose, like the other day when I was doing this, like I actually started to, I went for a walk in the woods and I started to get a little blurry eyes and runny nose. And then I was driving in the car on the way home and I was like, no. And I saw the pollen on the windshield and I was like, okay, raise the windows. But then I realized, no, that's a defensive stance. I'm like being defensive to my environment. And this at its base is a survival mode response. And I want to be in thriving mode. One, for my quality of life, but two, for my immune system benefits. So I remind them. So I rolled down the windows and I just opened it up and I just breathed and I just like, no, you know what? I don't want to be in a relationship with the environment as if it's threatening. And I want to be, and it's okay. This might not work, but it worked for me and it worked and it might work for you. And it might open up your mindset about what allergies actually are and that you might be able to relax through them and get to an opening where the allergy can still be there. The thing that was an allergen can still be there, but you no longer are reacting to it emotionally or physiologically. All right. Hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions and you want to go into this any more depth. Love to all. Together we thrive. Have a beautiful day.